When Boko Haram abducted 276 schoolgirls from Chibok in Nigeria's northeast in April 2014, it quickly became an event of global interest, with world political, economic, and human rights icons lending their collective voices to the appeal for their unconditional release. It wasn't to be, and between then and this moment, the situation has so depreciated to the extent that the entire primary education system on the northern parts of Nigeria has almost grounded to a halt by ceaseless terrorist attacks against schools. But Unicef says all hope is not lost. Joining us now to talk about how the global body feels that things can change is Peter Hawkins, Unicef country representative in Nigeria. Welcome, Peter. Good to have you on Newsday. I hope you can.
Good day, and great to be here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, how worrying is the situation we're faced with regards to the incessant kidnappings and consequently out-of-school children, bearing in mind that you were with us in our studios having an interview such as this, lauding the relaunch of the Safe Schools initiative? How much has been achieved through that?
We continue to be concerned, and very concerned at the events that took place yesterday morning in Kaduna. There seems to be an incessant occurrence of these kidnappings in schools, predominantly across the country, but Kaduna yesterday and Niger only a month ago, Zamfara, and so on and so forth. We are really, really concerned, and frankly, enough is enough. I mean, it has to be said that these events not only are traumatizing and putting at risk a lot of children, denying them rights to an education, but as we saw as of yesterday, it has meant that other schools have closed, parents are withdrawing their children from school, children themselves are reluctant to go back to school, and it's having a compound impact and on education right across Nigeria.
Well, this is beyond building higher walls in schools, isn't it? And permit me to reiterate the question posed at that April high-level dialogue for financing safe schools in Nigeria, hosted by the Minister of Finance, and you were in attendance. That question was posed by the chairman and editor-in-chief of this Day Arise group, and the question was basically, can we have safe schools without having a safe country?
Absolutely, and as I said then, one thing is for certain: we cannot have a safe country if you don't have a safe schools. Safe schools is imperative to ensure that children are able to learn, children are able to develop the skills to go forward. And as you quite rightly said, you know, walls and technology is not the answer. The answer here is sharing intelligence, is ensuring that each state has a state security plan whereby they can ensure and prevent events such as this from happening. If they do happen, is what is their response going to be? And a coherent response across states is a desired situation. But also at the same time, what we did talk about, and your own editor-in-chief was part of that discussion, is how can we make learning, children's learning, a commodity that communities really own and value, so that the communities themselves will protect the schools. We have in most schools something called school-based management committees. If we can put resources through those, as indeed we do, to help bring out the value of learning into the communities, bringing the communities into the school so that they can own that school, and through that there will be greater protection for the children, for the school itself, and for the future of the country, in that they will believe that the generation of today should learn to be able to contribute to this great country in the future.
I believe you're speaking to the value we place on education and, of course, of the subjects of education, the pupils. And so just looking to something that could be termed collateral or even consequential damage. And that is that even those students who are, or the people who are retrieved from the bandits' den, don't seem to be receiving adequate psychosocial reports. Is anyone attending to this matter? Because, again, this is like another ticking time bomb. And then I still want to get your take. I would like you to quantify what achievements have been made since the relaunch of the Safe Schools initiative earlier this year.
I think everything is being done to ensure that those children coming back from such a trauma do receive psychosocial care. Things have been put in place, and while we want to do more, and everybody wants to do more to ensure that that the impact of such a trauma is minimized, both in the short term but also in the longer term. Everything is being done. Now, the April conference, if indeed it was only only a couple of months ago. A lot is starting to be done, but it's taking us a while. And every time we have a setback, like yesterday, we feel pushed back into the situation. What we need to be doing is using the events of, say, for example, yesterday, to accelerate the progress in ensuring, one, that there's a sharing of intelligence around this, two, that there are state plans made to ensure the protection of schools and the opening of schools, because that's the important thing. And then three, and I like your terminology, the value of learning, which is very much inside the culture in Nigeria, is to reinforce that value of learning, the respect for teachers, the respect for pupils, and what they will be able to offer over the medium and longer term.
Okay, sorry, just to tag on to that, you say everything is being done, but we do have first-hand accounts of parents from Chibok who say they feel neglected, they feel abandoned, they didn't receive enough support, some even going to the extent of taking their own lives because they felt so desolate. What do you say to that?
I think that is justified, and everything was done at that time, but more needed to be done. And I think the gap between Chibok and what we're seeing now does need to be addressed and continue to be addressed. But also we need to learn from that, so that the children of today and the parents of today and the authorities of today don't have to face anew what the tragedy of Chibok did, is building on what we learned from the Chibok girls and really use that today to ensure the children of today are it's addressed in a way that allows them to be able to continue their learning.
Well, this has shifted from the northeast region of Nigeria, which was the hotbed for the Boko Haram insurgency. Over the years, we're now seeing it in the northwest and in the north central region, the abduction and attacks on schools. To your mind, what has Unicef identified as the reasons why these abductions are happening? Why are the schools being targeted?
It's not for me to say why they've been targeted, and I think at the conference it was very clear that we do need to differentiate between the ideological abductions, which a lot of it is in the northeast, and then the abductions which are criminal of nature, which we're seeing elsewhere. There is a mix of it. What we saw in Kaduna might be where conflict and criminality have come together, but there is an issue here that we need to address. Is school girls especially are a valuable commodity in this in this entity. How can we ensure that we protect them and prevent people from extorting and using those girls through abduction to be able to get resources? And it's that what I mean by differentiating and ensuring that we use the intelligence to hand to understand better what are the underlying factors, who's doing what, and how can the security services prevent such attacks from taking place? How can the authorities put things in place to prevent them from taking place? And I think what we saw in April was a very good and very open dialogue where there was a compact, where the security people, the educational people, the governance people, and the international community came together to say, okay, this is enough. Let's work hard together, and that's what's starting to happen to try and prevent these things from happening again. And should they happen, what can we do to address it in a timely manner?
Okay, and I mean, you've been trying to quantify the damages this may cause to education and out-of-school children in Nigeria. Can you tell us, if you were to estimate, how long will it take to reverse these damages being caused at the moment?
Well, you never completely revert. What you do is you contain it and try and ensure that it's well managed. But I think, you know, over the past 6 months to 18 months, we've had both COVID and insecurity. And the two things coming together really forces us to say, how do we ensure that, one, the children's learning is continuous, two, how we can accelerate that learning at times when there's been an interruption, and three, where poverty or insecurity has directly impacted that child, how we can use social protection measures to ensure that they get lifted back up onto the platform where learning is a potential possibility.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins, is it fair to say that your organization, Unicef, is becoming increasingly hamstrung? We know that only this year, the UK cut funding to Unicef by 60%. So rather than receiving 40 million pounds, you're receiving 16 million. And then in the light of that, understanding that Nigeria is facing similar challenges amidst the pandemic, what do you suggest would be effective solutions beyond throwing money at the problem?
I think it's that your last bit. I think what we've got to do is identify what really are the acute bottlenecks to address these problems and try and take those problems forward. Money is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's the methodology in trying to address the problem which is more important, and the partnerships in which we're doing that. And as I said, with financing of safe schools, the important issue there was, and we really focused on it, was the compact between the security forces, the educational facilities, the governance at state level, and the international community coming together to really take this seriously and address the problem.
Well, we've talked about the children, the students. We've talked about, we touched on the infrastructure called the school, making sure the schools are safe. But there's another component to it, Mr. Hawkins, the teachers. They have not been spared in some of these abductions. Are we having enough conversation around that?
Absolutely, and this is something that's really, I believe very strongly in. Teachers, we remember our teachers as children. I remember the name of one of my first teachers. I have a phenomenal degree of respect, and I'm sure you do, and many of your audience remembers the names of their teachers. And I think we should use this opportunity where teachers have, yes, they have, some of them have been abducted themselves or come across conflict, but also more than that, teachers have struggled during this COVID period to maintain their classrooms, maintain the way they're working. Teachers also go to work knowing there are 300 students in the classroom. How do you manage that and the difficulties of that? And I think we really do need to step up and recognize the role that teachers play in all our lives, and in Nigeria in particular, how we can recognize their contribution to children's development and learning, the development of the country, and really start to praise them for what they do. Recognition, a little bit of recognition, it costs nothing. It's just praise and thank you, and it goes a long way to ensure that they feel that what they're doing is contributing to the lives not only of those children, but also to their communities.
Okay, not to seem to be putting a dampener on your optimism, but a lot of people are of the view that Boko Haram are somehow still achieving their goal of making the effectiveness or the mechanism for education largely reduced as a result of their incessant attacks. What will you say to parents looking at another group that need morale boosting, who feel they've spent everything they have and they've come away the poorer for it and even traumatized? What do you say to such parents in the light of what they're facing now? How do you encourage them to continue to make this vital investment in the lives of their children?
I think for those individual parents and those individual families who have lost children in the course of this, or children have been kidnapped, you can never reassure them that things will go back to normal. But when you look at the wider picture, if you compare education in, say, Borno State from 2015 to today, there is a significant step forward in the number of children that are going to school. When you drive around Maiduguri, which I often do, at 8 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at lunchtime, 3:30 in the afternoon, there is a traffic jam of kekes with pink, green, blue uniformed children all trying to get into kekes to go home. You avoid those times. There's a phenomenal step forward in how many children are going to school in the Northeast. But your challenge, and your correct challenge, is how do we ensure that the remaining children who do not have access to learning, do not have access to schools, whether they are in areas where the insurgents dominate, or whether they're in areas which are on the margins, especially in the rural areas. That is our challenge, is to try and make sure that all children in the Northeast go to school.
Right.
We at Unicef are building classrooms, training teachers, really trying to push the boundaries out with all our partners across the board. So thank you very much.
That's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Hawkins, UNICEF representative, country representative in Nigeria. Much appreciated.